think that one of the things that can confuse people when we talk about developmental psychology is exactly what we mean when we talk about infants and toddlers and adolescents, because I don't think it's at all apparent about what those things actually mean. And so I thought that I'd spend some time talking about exactly what scientists and doctors mean when they refer to different age groups. And the first one that I want to talk about is the prenatal period. And when we talk about the prenatal period, what we're talking about is the time between conception, when a sperm and egg meet, to when a child is born 9 months later. So this is the period of time when an individual is still in the womb. The next major period that scientists typically talk about is infancy. And infancy refers to the time in between birth and 18 months, so birth and the first 2 years of life. Next, we have toddlerhood, and that refers to the time between when a child is 18 months old and 27 months old, or put in a way that's probably more commonly thought about, between the ages of 2 and 3. And I think I'll just switch to that terminology from now on, because I think that's typically how people think about development in terms of years after the first year as opposed to in terms of months. The next age group that we distinguish are the preschool years. And this is the period when a child is between 3 and 5 years of age, so the period of time where they could be in preschool or some kind of pre-K. Next we have childhood, which is also sometimes referred to as middle childhood. And that can be defined as the time between when a child is 5 and 12 years of age, but it can also suggest the time between when a child is 5 and the onset of puberty, at which point we say that a child has entered into adolescence. And this signifies the period between when a child is 12 or when a child has reached puberty and when they're maybe 21-ish. This one is sort of less clear because there isn't necessarily an exact age that we associate with the end of adolescence. Instead, we say that adolescence is typically over when an individual has become independent. So when they move away from their family and get their own job and become financially independent. Which is not to say that people who live with their families and who are supported by their families past this time period, that doesn't mean that they have not passed adolescence. This is just a convenient way that we talk about the division between these two stages. After the point in which an individual moves out of their house and becomes self-sufficient, around maybe age 20, 21, 22, we say that they've reached young adulthood. And I'm going to put down 20 to 40 as the age range for young adult because that's how I've typically seen it, but I think perhaps today we would maybe be more likely to think of ages 20 to 30 or 20 to 35 as young adulthood. Next we would have middle adulthood, which we would say would be about 40 to 65 years of age. So about middle age until an individual retires, or at least around the age when individuals used to retire. And then lastly, we have old age, which tends to have a start time, but not an end time. And so we would say that old age is anyone who is above age 65. And so these are just some general terms and ages that you might want to become familiar with. But I do want to take a moment to again focus on this word approximate, which is written right here, because all of these age ranges are approximate and may or may not apply to any given individual. For example, sometimes girls as young as 10 go through puberty, and if we're using this as a strict definition, we would then say that that 10-year-old would be within the adolescence phase of life. And that might be true, but I'm sure that some people would also classify that individual as still being a child. Also notice that adolescence is extended to age 20 or 21, when there are certainly individuals who, by age 18, are already independent from their families and maybe have families of their own. So keep these age ranges in mind, but know that they're not set in stone.